Good morning and welcome. This is Megan Mansfield from Accordant Company. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar from Sage titled Sage ToolOps. Our presenter today is Darren Pierce, Estimating Field Manager for Sage CRE. Before we get started, I want to address a few housekeeping items. Everyone is muted for a clean listening experience. If you have any questions, please type them into the questions box. We will collect the questions and address them at the end of the session. For the best viewing experience, please maximize your screen. Today's webinar is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be provided via email. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Darren.
All right, thanks, Megan, and good morning, everybody. Hope your day is going well, and I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to join in the presentation. And just to give you a high-level understanding of what we're going to be walking through, I'm going to go through a PowerPoint briefly. I don't want to spend too much time. Then we're going to dive into the solution and talk about the benefits of the solution and everything it can do for your company. So at this point, I'll go ahead and progress the PowerPoint and get to the next slide. And that's kind of stating what I'm going to do: overview, presentation, and then we'll do some Q&A at the end. And as Megan mentioned, if you have questions, feel free to jot those in at any time, and then we'll answer those at the end of the presentation. So kind of the genesis of this solution and why it started, probably for the same reason maybe that you're looking at this solution today, is this individual here, electrical contractor, said, where's all my equipment at? Why am I losing tools, equipment, etc.? How do I stay on top of tracking those? And after looking at the market and looking at what was available, there wasn't anything. So back in 1991, he started to build out this tool. Now, today, it is cloud-based. So of course, it used to be on premise, but now it's in the cloud. Anywhere, anytime, where you are, could be on the beach, internet access, we can utilize this system, this tool, and it works on any device as well. So if you think about computers, laptops, you think about those Androids, those Apple devices that you have, doesn't matter, works on every one of them. So today, over 6,000 organizations. This slide's a little bit old, so we're starting to ramp up into the 7,000 realm, and across 20 plus countries. So it's out there and international. Now, the thing that you look at here is tools. And when we start looking at the National Equipment Register, they did some research, they did some investigation, and they found, well, how much do you think a year is being stolen today, lost on these sites, so on and so forth? And equipment. We're not talking about tools, materials, that type of thing. It's kind of shocking what they came back with, but they say it's in the $300 to $1 billion mark. And you know, a lot of companies come to me and they say, this is the reason why we want a tool like this. We want to be able to start tracking, staying on top of the equipment, the tools that we have, also consumables, and be able to know where it is, who has it, so on and so forth. So that's a big number, $1 billion. And that doesn't include tools and materials. Now, anywhere, anytime, and I kind of mentioned this, but this kind of gives you a schematic of what we're looking at as far as the individuals that are surrounding this cloud tool and having access to it. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can manage that access, because it's not just about giving them access to the tool. We may want to minimize some of the functions they can do with it. We'll talk a little bit about that when I get into the demonstration. Down here, though, when we look at integration, there is one thing that we're not looking at here, we don't see, and you've probably heard of, is Sage Intacct. We're building out the integration for that as well, and that's happening within this year, not too far away from now. But at this point, what you're looking at is the feeding of the information from the 300 to 100 applications. And we'll get into what that information is pulling up and then talk about what's being pushed out from the ToolOps solution. But you think about all of the individuals out there wrapped around this solution and having access to that information. Again, anywhere, any place, anytime. Who doesn't have a cell phone with them today? So Everybody does, right? So let's talk about some of the advantages, the benefits. Of course, this new user interface, it used to be on-prem. Just within the last year and a half, it's gone to full cloud mode. So it does live, breathe in the cloud. Any device, as I mentioned, that's huge. So you're not going out and buying any additional hardware to make this work. It's going to work on any device that you have. And the key to it, and what brings in, as I mentioned, what brings companies to us is I want to be able to stay on top of my equipment, my tools, always. Always want to know where those pieces of equipment are at. Increase accountability. And this kind of plays into higher utilization of tools and equipment as well. And what I look at there is if you know who has those pieces of equipment, what PM has those pieces of equipment, it really puts a kind of, I don't want to say a target, but at least a focus on, well, where is it? Why is it that your equipment seems to be getting lost or we don't have it anymore? So when we look at that accountability factor. But the other thing is a project manager, superintendent, they want to come in budget on their jobs. Well, sometimes they may take extra equipment just as a backup sitting out on site so that in case that one goes down, I've got this other piece of equipment sitting there idle and ready to go. Well, with the automatic charging mechanism we have within the system, we want to be under budget as a superintendent, project manager, whoever's overseeing that site. We want to be, or that job, that project. We want to make sure that we come in under that budget right there. Improve cost controls. We'll talk a little bit about the billing and the job costing that comes along with this solution and the automation it brings to the table. Now, some of you may have the equipment cost module where you're entering in those, going through the grid and entering that information in. This solution will give you some automation to that so we don't have to go through that process. Better reporting, giving us the capability to report on the ROI of those pieces of equipment. Are we making money? Or is it starting to cost us more money than what it's making for us? So we're going to give you those ROI types of reports within the system. And then, of course, service schedules give you a better mechanism for tracking the service on those pieces of equipment. And there is some automation that goes along with that as well. So with that being said, live demo, right? I don't want to PowerPoint you to death. I want to get into the solution. So when we get out here and we start looking at this particular landing page that we have, it is a way to manage the key performance indicators, KPIs, of course. So when we look at this can be information that's high level information that we want to see. Up here are quick access functions that we can go browse tools that are out past their return date, so on and so forth. You can change this information right here. And we have some graphical information down here as well that you can take advantage of. Now, there are 3 pin-ins to this solution. And what I mean by that is, are we a back office individual? Are we warehouse? Are we managing the tool crib, the tool warehouse? Or are we out in the job site? At this point, I'm going to stay with back office for a couple reasons. First of all, every time I get into this solution, I'm asked, well, what about security? What can I do within the solution that manages what individuals can do within the application? So you define a role, and then within that role, you can make a determination of just about any function within this system. So when I pull up my iPhone, which you're going to see in a bit, we're going to be able to see, hey, I can limit that information, that detail. I can limit what I'm seeing over here on the left-hand side as well. Totally up to you on how you do that. Integration, well, if I look at the catalog here, we have Sage 300, 100, and Intact coming. Well, with that being said, what's being pulled out of our Sage financial systems, our Sage accounting systems? Well, it's going to be payroll. Of course, those employees, right? Automatically. I don't want you to have to duplicate that. It's going to just feed this into the cloud solution. Jobs, extras, job cost codes, and the equipment. If you're using the equipment module, you're able to go ahead and feed that information up there as well. So it does give you that capability and send that detail up. Now, what comes out of the system? It is an export import that can be modified to how you've got the system set up. and I'm talking about, of course, the 100, 300 systems and Intacct for that matter, and be able to import that in with 300, it's a direct cost, so on and so forth. So it's going to give you that capability to do that. Other things I'll touch base on here is this. First of all, rate sheets. So when we think about a mechanism of automation here, we want to give you the capability to set up this equipment and determine a rate sheet of the costs for those pieces of equipment. Now, it could be job cost or it could be billing, depending upon how you want to set it up. We have the capability to do both, billing and job cost. But in here, what you're looking at is a list of all of these pieces of equipment, and then what is the base value, or what are we going to be charging? And then how are we going to charge for it? Is it going to be just as assignment? It goes to the site, we charge a fixed amount, done. Charged by the day, by the hours, by the minutes, by the hourly usage as well. So we give you that capability. A lot of functionality here, but we look at the daily, the weekly rate, so on and so forth. You can modify that, of course. And then we start looking at maybe credits for getting those pieces of equipment back in. So we credit the job or what have you. So we do have other additional functions that you can really dig into that give you the opportunity to, well, maximize the efficiency of those pieces of equipment. Hey, if there's a credit, hey, I'm going to make sure that I get that piece of equipment back on time when we need to have it back in the warehouse for that next job. So this is an automated functionality. Assign it to the job, the clock starts ticking. So we have that capability right there. And then we also have, if we're tracking inventory items, and an inventory item could be anything, it could be a tool, it could be consumables. And this gives us the capability to set up low target levels that we want. And then this, of course, this report right here is saying, well, we need to beef up the stock that we have. So we need to create a purchase order and beef up that stock right there. And jumping into item browser. So here's all the tools. So I believe what we're looking at is over 8,000 tools within the system that I'm tracking right here. But of course, there's no limitation to the amount of tools that you can track within the system. Tools, equipment, and consumables. You can see I can switch to consumables up here. But with that being said, now I've clicked on all of the tools within the system. So some key components with the application. And this speaks to how we charge or how you invest in this application here. It's not about the number of licenses, number of users that are working with the system. It's about the barcoding. So when I look at the barcoding structure in here, how many barcodes or how many SKUs are you tracking within the system? We could have 1,000 employees hacking away working with the system, but this is what we're going to look at that annual subscription fee as. Now, as we jump over here, I'm going to get into these here in a moment, but this is going to look at the SKUs and how they're tagged. There's quantitative and there's unique. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But when we drag over here, additional information, we can see the age. When was the last time this particular piece of equipment was transacted? 2886. Well, that's 1, 2, 3. That's a few years ago, right? So why are we wasting space on some of these pieces of equipment that never get used? We can go ahead and do that. And additional information, additional details, owner, manager, supervisor, so on and so forth. So a lot of details that we have available to us as we get into this, but that's a high level. What we want to do is we want to drill down into specific pieces of equipment. So in this case right here, if I looked at the type unique tool, so to define that for you out there, a unique tool would be like a truck. I want to see all the history and the activity that happened with that pieces of equipment. That would have its own barcode, own serial code. Quantitative, well, that's, hey, I've got a bin of screwdrivers. I really don't care about each individual one. I just want to know that I've got 300 screwdrivers there. Or extendable ladders, let's use that. I've got 50 extendable ladders. They'll all have the same SKU. I still want to be able to charge those to the job. I've got 5 over here, I've got 5 here, so on and so forth. But it is a quantitative SKU that we'd be looking at. All this criteria gives me the capability status, class. You can modify these to whatever you want. But in this situation here, I want to drill down into an employee. Now look at locations, just for example purposes. Location's the job. But if you also want to think about a location outside of a job, it could be a trailer. Joe's trailer. He has a set amount of equipment that's on his trailer. That could be a location as well. And then stock locations. And these kind of things are interchangeable. This is jobs, but stock locations, that's your tool crib where you're storing that, so on and so forth. But let's drill down into, well, me. And let's see what I've got going on. So if I search for the piece of equipment that I have out there, it's going to very quickly drill down right to what I have, what's in my ownership and assigned to me. So it's going to give me all of that information, that detail right there. Now, when I'm looking at this detail, I may want to transact on each one of these or some of these pieces of equipment. I could look at the meter history. Let's open that up. So I have been entering in the meter. By the way, there are automations in here that if it hits 5,000, 10,000 milestones, we can automate a work order being generated for this piece of equipment. Or if I go in and I want to see hours in history, transaction history, I have the capability to see all of that detail within the system here and go on and on and on. So we have the capability to do a lot of activity, transactional activity right here. But if I need to dig in deeper, I want to see more information about the truck. Now I can see the barcode that's assigned to this truck, the serial number, so on and so forth. Assignment. Of course, it's assigned to me, and I'm keeping it, by the way. I love this truck, so it's mine. But with that being said, when is my return date? I'm going to say never. I'm going to keep it forever. But when we have the build location, the class that goes along with this, how about the ownership? It says right there, purchase date, how much was it? And what's the warranty date if we had that in here, purchase order, so on and so forth. Now let's look at the service activity behind this. Well, here's the work order history, and I can see the details. If I wanted to view each one of those, I most definitely could. Open work orders that are going on at this point, I could do that. I could edit that right from here. And then of course, the service plan that goes with that as well. So if I wanted to view that, edit that, I could go through the process of doing that also. Vehicle, lease, rental, custom fields, and then what attachments go along with this. So what attachments do you want to have associated with your piece? I just threw a copy of an invoice here for looks like service charges, but in this case, what else do you want in here? What do you want to write along with this equipment? Could it be safety inspections and so on and so forth? So whatever you want to write along with those pieces of equipment, you have the capability to do so. And in the field or wherever I go and access this piece of equipment, I'll see that information as well. I'll show you that when I get to my cell phone and working on that. So the opportunity to drill down into these pieces of equipment very quickly, really easy to do. And as I mentioned, when you look at this, I may want to see what's out on a location. Click the button, boom, drill in. So now I'm going to look at being an individual from the field. So I'm out on the job. I'm pinning myself this organizational tree. We could be any of those. Here's the job that I'm working with. Say done. And first thing you'll notice, or at least I'll draw your attention to, is I don't have as much functionality over here. Low level browser. I've got the item browser that we look at, but we're going to draw your attention to a couple things within the system here. Now let's say that I go out and buy a piece of equipment. Well, we're going to say DeWalt here, and now we've got these pieces of equipment right here. I can add a model if I want. I can add this model, go ahead and start tracking it, so on and so forth. Matter of fact, what I could say, those are things that we're tracking. These are the things that I want to add to our inventory of items that I'm going to start tracking. Start tracking, click a button. Let's go ahead and say tool, equipment, materials, and consumables. unique or quantitative ID, so on and so forth. So we want to do a lot of that entry information automatically for you. I can put in the category on my own, I can put in the description, or I can use the manufacturer's description, and we go from there. So that's how I can add those tools. And by the way, when you start with the solution, what we'll do is we'll dump the information, we'll import all of the equipment into the system. So we'll get that started right out of the gate. So you don't have to go through this on every one of these. We'll initiate that process and get it all out here for you to start working with it. The other thing that we look at here is my requisitions home. So what I want to do is I want to start requesting items for the jobs that I'm working on, or for this job, because I'm pinned in to this job. So I want a broom. And if I go out, I can do a quick search for those particular items right there. And do I want to push broom or small broom, what have you. So it's going to search and it's going to say, okay, these are the brooms that you have available to you. Here's how much it's going to cost you for that. Now it does say it's out of stock right there, but we'll push on. We'll say out of stock, but per assignment, I do want to add this to my cart. Now what's interesting about the solution and the way it was developed is we want to give you that Amazon look, that Amazon feel to how you're requesting these pieces of equipment. So up here, here's my cart. Here's what we have going on with the cart. Here's how many of those things that I need. I can hit the plus button, so on and so forth. And we're going to add those to my cart. You can see I'm ready to check out here in just a moment. Great. But I also may want to look at my history, my request again history, so to speak. So at this point, I've got a list of all of those items within a certain date range, right? Certain time frame. I could get 3 months out, 2022, 2023, so on and so forth. But I can see a list of all of those items that I've requested in the past. I can very quickly just say request again, and it will add it to my cart. So say click, request again, and add to cart. And I'll say 2 of those. Demo data, guys. So when it says out of stock, you know. So next steps would be, let's go ahead and check out. Now in the checkout process, I'm going to be submitting this to the Atlanta warehouse. I'm going to put a date in here I need it by, and I'm going to say additional items needed. 1, 2, 3, and I'll just go ahead and leave it at that. 30 words per minute was the best I could ever do as first typing. So I won't waste a lot of your time looking at how I can slowly type. So with that being said, we've got all these items that we're going to order. I'll submit the request. Done. So with that being said, we've gone ahead and gone through that process right there, and we've sent that back to the main application right there. Now I have access to all of them in here. Of course I do, but what access do you want to give to the individuals that are going to be working? Warehouse manager is going to have different access, possibly. You may give everything to them. So totally up to you on what that looks like. So that's one methodology of how we can interact with the solution. The next way would be, well, let's go out to my cell phone right there. Whoops, didn't want to do that. Turned it sideways. There we go. So it's always nice to see the image being projected on the screen there for you. So when we look at this, this is the app that is available to you on any device. And with that, you know, an iPad and maybe even have a Surface laptop out in the field, that'd be great. Then you can use, well, of course, this UI back here. But with that being said, again, the functionality can be limited based upon what you determine is important for that individual or that role within the system here. And just to give you kind of a feel for what I mean by that, if I was using this as a warehouse individual, now I'm going to have some additional capabilities, some additional functionality that I have with this interaction with the application. But I'm going to go ahead and move back to that individual right there. I'm going to be in the field, and now we'll say home search. When I look at a search, first of all, let's hit search. And I hit tools. I'm not using my mouse. I'm actually hitting my phone with my thumb. I say my tools and my assigned tools. So now that same list that I did a quick search for within the solution there, now it's showing that to me on my phone. And if I wanted to drill down into more information on that, I could. So that detail that I saw within the solution, I'm seeing it right here. And if I wanted to drill down in and update, change the status, update the meter, again, so as you're going through this process here, if that meter hits a certain number, 5, 10, 15 typically, when synthetic oil, we can go further, of course, but when we look at that, we've got the capability to update that meter, which will automatically generate that service work order. So nice to have that around, but let's view that attachment. So I'm in the field, but I want to see that invoiced right there and be able to view that as well. So when you think about the information that needs to ride along with a piece of equipment that will be beneficial in the field, maybe some types of instructions, some types of certification, some type of safety stamp that you have to go through, safety inspection, that would be something that would be important to have out here as well. So with that being said, we have the capability to get back here. I can move from one job to the next. I can request. So when you think about the request that I went through back here in this UI, now I have the capability to do the same thing, but it's on my iPhone. I'm going to request. I'm going to put my name in here. And let's actually find me in there. There I am. Great. The cost center. This is the billing mechanism that we'd be using. So that rate sheet that I showed you, you can have as many of those rate sheets as you'd like, because we may charge different pricing for different jobs, different types of jobs, so on and so forth. So you can set up as many rate sheets, maybe even set it up specific to each job if you wanted to. I can put in the cost code if I want. I'll just use the one that it's available to me. I could get to the global if I wanted and say, give me all the cost codes. And this is totally up to you as far as that cost code structure is concerned. And I need it by, let's say, this date right there. If I wanted to put some comments in there, I could do that as well. Now here's where you're looking to use the barcoding system. Now, anywhere that you're working with the system, if I am the tool crib manager, the warehouse manager, having a gun would be really nice, right? A scan gun. But you know, with the phones, the technology the phones have today, almost any phone can be a scan tool. So you have the barcode, and typically what we suggest is send out a barcode book with individuals in the field so that they can very quickly go through the process of doing that. And it always makes for an interesting little picture right there, just so you can see that. And but we're gonna, since I know the number, I'm gonna do it very quickly. I want a compressor. I want one of those bad boys, and I can submit that. Now, if I want to add other items, we can go out and say tools, and I can go through the tools or the materials if I wanted to as well. Again, scanning, click, 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 boom, boom, boom. You're able to do that very quickly. I'll submit this and we're good to go. Say okay. And that's submitting it back to the mothership, so to speak. So we'll get into what that looks like. Verification. Typically we want to know, and we want to be able to stay on top of the equipment on maybe a weekly, monthly cadence. So what I can do is I can go through the process of verifying the equipment that I have. Just very quickly verifying that it is on site still. Keeping that inventory and that cadence so that we have all of that transactional activity information detail to run reports. When did we lose that piece of equipment? What was the date? Well, Darren said he had it this date, but interestingly enough, he doesn't have it now. So what happened to it? So service request, of course, I can send into our maintenance individual. I'm not going to go through this, but hey, I need to get my truck oil changed. Send that in, generate that, or come out and fix this piece of equipment as well. So a service request. So that is the interaction with the phone. So I've gone through the UI back here and also the app that's on a phone, iPad. It doesn't matter, again, the device that you're looking at. So what did that activity do? Well, if we go out and log ourselves in as our warehouse individual here, we're going to, of course, have that dashboard of information that's going to warm up for us, but we're not really going to wait for it to do so. So as I look at my activities, again, look at how much functionality I have within the system. You have that capability to determine what that's going to be. I go into pick tickets, and I'm going to get rid of that. I want to see all of the pick tickets that have been, or the requests that have been sent to me between these dates right here. So now we can see all of that we've received at this point, right? So these are the latest two that I've sent in, so on and so forth. So if I want to look at this 9:24, 8:30, different times. Of course, I'm in Portland, Oregon, so I'm on the Pacific time zone here. But if I open this and I want to view this, there's all of those things that I ordered through the Amazon look and feel. There they all are, ready to go. We can go through and start picking those out. And all I need to do is go ahead and save this and start going through the process. Notice the notes that I wrote in here, additional items needed for order. And if I would have taken the time to type them in order to put those in, and those would be items that you don't necessarily have, one-off items that maybe you need to create a purchase order within Sage and generate that. We can most definitely do that as well. I just need to go through and quickly pick these out and go through the process. A lot of companies like a very smooth transition from the product that they're working with today. So we do have the capability to print this out right here and go through that as well. So with that being said, I thought that was going to print that for me. Let's see if I can get it to do so. There we go. There's our page. So again, the thing that we don't really have to do this, we can do everything by the device that we're working with and go out and scan them and check them off as we go through electronically, of course. But in the transition, a lot of companies moving to this type of solution still like to have the transition of paper to go along with that. So you don't have to do that. I'm just saying you could if you wanted to. And signatures and all that fun stuff. All of that is done electronically. So if I go back, let's see if the back is going to work. Let's just go over here and say pick tickets again, search. And let's limit that to this. So if I go back and look at the next one here, there's that compressor I did on my phone. As you expect, those two feeding in so that the next individual can start picking these. And that assigned to right here would be, if we have multiple individuals within the warehouse, we can assign it to that individual. It'll plop in their lap and they'll go out and start picking those. So I'm not going to go through the entire process with you here. The count inventory. So as I went through the process of saying, hey, I've still got this in the field. This is still something that is on my site, and validating it is still there. Well, I checked off these particular items right here, but I didn't check off those. That's interesting, right? So this would be something where we would go, okay, Darren, why is it that you don't have your compressor, and why is it you don't have your shop truck? That's a whole another discussion right there. But again, the accountability that comes along with this type of system, it is amazing. It's funny how when companies start utilizing this, those lost pieces of equipment, those lost things that they just don't happen anymore. So last but not least, I'll look at one more thing here, and then we'll jump into the final piece. I don't want to take up the full hour. I want to give you a little bit of time back. So when we look at this, oh, and then by the way, if you have questions, feel free to type them in. There's the chat or the questions area that you can type in there. Looking at this though, we have a service dashboard right here, service request. So if I would have added a request that said, come out and help me, please, fix my piece of equipment, then that would have come into here and I'd be able to view those requests, pending, in progress, so on and so forth. And easy enough, I can view these and be able to see what's the detail that we have going on right there, right? So definitely want to make it easy for that transitional of information, that communication. I don't even have to pick up the phone. I just say, hey, boom, I need some service, help me, that kind of thing. And then of course the work orders. When we look at work orders right here, and I'm giving it a broad date spectrum here, is we look at this, hey, it's pending at this point. If you wanted to view these, open these up, I can view them. I can take a look at the information, the detail. What's the task for this going to be? Well, change oil, change filter, so on and so forth. What are the instructions that go along with this? And I just wrote any additional instruction, but you can of course have this in here, and you can templatize this of course as well. And what I mean by that is have standard functions, instructions that you'd be working with. Required tools, parts, charges. What are the charges? Are we using this as a charging mechanism with out here in this system, or are we doing those charges back? Probably most likely back in the Sage 100, 300 applications. And then assignments as well. If you do those charges out there, then you just come in and put in a charge, a lump sum charge for that. And then here's our service schedule. So we have a service schedule out here that we can look at and be able to say, well, what's the calendar of events that we've got going on right here? So this gives us that capability to maintain those service levels. And again, based upon that piece of equipment, based upon, let's say, a vehicle, I hit the $10,000 odometer reading mark, it's going to automatically generate a work order for us to get that in the process and moving forward. Last but not least, reports. Scheduled reports, you know, using 300, 100, you're used to waking up in the morning. Well, you may not have my assistant on 300, but we can schedule those reports to hit our email box when we wake up and drink our coffee and whatever. This tool is no different. Let's schedule them, send them out to you, and be able to see those and read those and stay on top of that. Well, maybe not as you're drinking your coffee. I don't want to, you know, we want to enjoy our coffee in the morning, so to speak. So here's some reports that we can generate in here, and I'll just drill into one, but you look at tool reports, list transfer reports. And with each one of these, of course, you have the capability to see barcoding, you know, what we got as far as barcoding is concerned. The system will generate the barcodes for you, and you'll be able to put that onto any type of metal barcode, whatever you may want to put that on. We have a lot of options that you can look through for those barcodes and attaching those to those pieces of equipment. Sturdy, of course, because sometimes we beat that equipment around a lot, so we need to have something that's gonna stand the test of time, so to speak. Billing reports, and when I look at that, I always like to drive down into this one right here, and I want to be specific, so I can go ahead and browse, let's say vehicle, and say okay to that, print that data, and it's going to generate that ROI report for that. So again, when we think about that, is it going to be something that is making us money or losing money more than it's cost us more money than it's worth, so to speak? So in this, again, demo data, So when we look at this, we can look at the pickup, we can look at the purchase date. If the purchase price is in here, well, let's at least get to a purchase price one. We have purchase price. If any of the services charges are going to be in here, total revenue, so on and so forth. So any piece of equipment we'll be able to run this report on, but it gives us a great ROI on those pieces of equipment. And again, are they starting to get a little bit aged? And is it time to move on and buy another piece of equipment as well? So full reporting and of course, distribution of those reports that you'd have from the system as well. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and jump back into the PowerPoint, and I'm going to progress this one bit here just so you can see this. So there's multiple levels of what you can do within the system, and tool tracking, probably the minimal portion of what you can do within the system. Tool management gives us the capability to have all of this functionality over here: service, purchasing, receiving, if you want to use it, so to speak, job cost and billing. And then the enterprise level of functionality gives us the capability, the access to customization of reports. So you can build any report you want. API, you can build out any integration you want. You're getting access to the back end of the solution. So if you're one of those companies that has the knowledge to generate BI reports, whatever it may be, and want to access that information, you most definitely could. The other thing is build your own integration into other tools that sit outside of this tool, whatever that may be. So that's what that API would give to you as well. So with that being said, we have different levels and of course different charges. Again, if you think about the solutions, you walk away from this and you say, gosh, that I love that tool, I want to get that tool. The thing that in the exercise that I ask prospects and customers to look at is, well, how many SKUs do I have? Again, quantitative versus unique. I want to track all the history on my unique tools and have all that transactional information specific to that piece of equipment. That's unique, and that would be a SKU, right? And then the quantitative is, I've got a bin of things. I don't care about each individual one, but I still want to be able to assign that to a job. And that goes for your consumables as well. Looking at that also. So unique and quantitative. Anyway, Q&A. I think I have, Megan, I think we have a question maybe?
No, good, excuse me. No, we have no questions at the moment.
Okay.
If anybody has any questions, please enter them into either the chat or the questions box. No, Darren, it doesn't look like we have any questions. So thank you very much for participating, and excuse me, have a great day. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.